The silence before the storm. The aliens called it the conquest of Gliese 9, but to them it was supposed to be routine, a quick annexation of a backward, primitive species that posed no threat, no challenge, no spark of resistance. The Saurians, a cold-blooded reptilian species whose empires spanned countless systems, had done this countless times. They crushed worlds with the elegance of predators cleaning a carcass, their claws never stained with doubt. Every time, every planet, every species bent to their will. Every species, that is, except one. Earth. Commander Vrelix, whose scales gleamed like polished obsidian under the harsh lighting of his flagship's bridge, surveyed the holographic projection of Earth. Tiny, blue, and fragile-looking, spinning innocently in the void. Primitive, he hissed. No defenses worth noting. Their fleets are shadows. Their cities toys. Their military laughable. His subordinates, a mix of bureaucrats and field tacticians, nodded like puppets trained to anticipate his every thought. None dared question the commander. Fear was an effective motivator, and Vrelix wielded it like a sword. The humans will fall in 3 standard rotations, he declared, claws drumming a menacing rhythm on the command console. Ensure the orbital bombardments are precise. Minimal collateral. Oh, who am I kidding? Level them. Every last trace. The species is irrelevant once eradicated. But Earth had waited. Humanity had always waited. Waiting was a talent honed through centuries of persecution, isolation, and underestimation. The galaxy had always looked down on humans. Slow, fragile, emotional. But humans had patience. And patience, when wielded as a weapon, could be devastating. On Earth, Captain Mara Chen of the United Earth Defense Corps leaned against the railing of her command deck aboard the Vigilant, her gaze fixed on the approaching alien armada. The warships were massive, their spires cutting across the stars like jagged teeth. The humans had known this day would come. All the way back to the first failed colony expeditions, the first trade disputes, the first Cold Wars that almost ended the planet in nuclear fire, they had prepared. Not in panic, not in desperation, but in silence, in calculation, in the quiet knowledge that the galaxy would one day learn what humans could do when pushed to the brink. They think they know us, Mara said quietly to her XO, Commander Soren, her eyes narrow, almost glowing with determination. They're about to find out how much they don't know. Soren's response was a nod, steady, unwavering. Then let's remind them, Captain, that Earth doesn't surrender. From orbit, the planet below seemed serene, almost mockingly peaceful. Green forests stretched across continents. Oceans shimmered under the sun. Cities twinkled, lights like fireflies. To an untrained eye, or to alien eyes, Earth looked harmless. A jewel to be plucked, a prize to claim without effort. They couldn't hear the hum of orbital defense guns charging, the silent movement of stealth corvettes ready to strike, the endless calculations streaming through Earth's AI networks plotting the demise of the invaders before the first shot was fired. Mara's grin was quiet but lethal. Let's show them why humanity doesn't play nice. The humans had been underestimated for too long. Centuries of colonization attempts, skirmishes with alien species, betrayals by supposed allies, they had learned one thing with clarity. Survival was not enough. Revenge was not enough. Power, cunning, and the ability to inflict fear, real fear, was what the galaxy needed to remember. Back on Vrelix's flagship, the alien commander continued his preparations with clinical efficiency. Ships were repositioned. Energy shields calibrated. Drone squadrons launched to recon the atmosphere. Every measure, every precaution, yet none anticipated what humans had meticulously hidden for years. In the underground bunkers of New Beijing, humanity's scientists and engineers monitored the alien fleet through encrypted feeds. Every weapon system, every orbital defense cannon, every gravity-manipulating device had been perfected in secret, tested in simulations, and now primed for the moment of ultimate revelation. Dr. Celine Ortiz, lead engineer, tapped her console with a sly smile. "They're coming for us," she said. "And they won't even see it coming." Her assistant, a grizzled veteran named Captain Hakim, chuckled darkly. "They always underestimate us. Every species does. Every damn time." He adjusted his plasma rifle, checking the fuel levels of its hyperheated round. "They're gonna learn, the hard way, what happens when you try to eat the wrong animal." The first sign of humanity's patience came not with guns or missiles, but with silence. Not a single warning flare. Not a single transmission. Just the waiting, like a snake coiled in the grass. And in the coiled quiet, Earth's warriors prepared to strike. Then came the subtle signals in the communications channels of the Saurian fleet. Subtle disruptions, almost imperceptible, calculations off by fractions of a percent, thrusters firing without command, sensor anomalies that made Vrelix narrow his eyes. "Curious," he muttered, frowning. "Check all systems. Trace every anomaly." Meanwhile, Mara and her officers watched the aliens squirm, their confidence slipping. "They think they have the advantage," Mara whispered. "They don't even know they're on our terms now." In orbit, massive dropships stirred, cloaked against the alien sensors. Soldiers in advanced exosuits loaded plasma rifles and railguns, weapons that fired with precision no alien armor could hope to withstand. Drones buzzed overhead, autonomous and lethal, programmed with predictive AI capable of outmaneuvering entire squadrons of the enemy. Yet the humans did not move rashly. They did not waste energy on theatric. The first strike, when it came, would be invisible, perfect, devastating. Earth had become a predator in plain sight, waiting for the opportune moment to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Mara's voice was calm, almost serene as she issued the final command. "Hold positions. Wait for my mark. Remember, we fight not just to survive, but to make them regret every moment they ever thought us weak." Silence returned for a heartbeat, a moment pregnant with tension. And in that silence, the galaxy's most dangerous miscalculation took shape. Humanity had been underestimated. The aliens assumed they were predators. They did not realize they were prey in a trap designed by centuries of cunning, patience, and wrath. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as Earth's warriors readied their descent. Humanity was about to fall from the sky, and the galaxy would never recover from the lesson. Fire from the sky. The first strike was invisible. Not a shot fired, not a sensor ping, not even a warning flare. Just silence, until the alien fleet began to vanish. Saurian mining stations in orbit, massive hulks of metal and crystal, blinked out of existence like candles snuffed by an unseen hand. Communications circuits lit with panicked static, screams filtered across the comm channels, and Vrelix's claws banged on the console with disbelief. Impossible! How? Another freighter evaporated in the blink of an eye, leaving only a ripple in space where it had been. Panic spread through the command bridge, a rare and corrosive sensation for a species that prized logic over instinct. Officers shouted, sensors recalibrated, drones were unleashed to locate whatever ghost was decimating their fleets, but every calculation failed. Captain Mara Chen watched from the Vigilance observation deck, her eyes glinting with cold satisfaction. "They're learning," she murmured almost to herself, "that humans don't play fair." Her fleet did not consist of the largest ships, the fastest ships, or the most technologically advanced ship. It consisted of human ingenuity, patience, and creativity. The humans had weaponized their underestimation. Every maneuver was planned, every strike choreographed to inflict maximum chaos before the aliens could react. Then came the descent. Massive dropships emerged from Earth's clouds, streaking through the atmosphere like meteors of war. Soldiers in exosuits, armed with plasma rifles, Gauss cannons, and devices that could manipulate gravity itself, leapt into combat zones as if born for the chaos. Drones, capable of making split-second tactical decisions, swarmed ahead of them, slicing alien formations apart before they even registered the threat. Vrelix roared. "Scatter! Counterattack! Focus fire on their command ships. His fleet responded, energy beams slicing the void, plasma missiles streaking through orbit, but it was too late. Earth's warriors were everywhere, appearing where no one expected them. Frontal assaults were met with sudden flanks, heavy artillery struck from the surface, orbital defenses cut the supply lines in half. On the ground, the fight was just as savage. Humanity did not retreat, did not hide. They surged through alien positions with brutal efficiency. Mara's voice cut across comm channels. No mercy. No hesitation. For every colony they've burned, for every human life lost, make them regret stepping on our planet. Corporal Hakim vaulted across a ruined skyscraper, hurling a thermite grenade into a Saurian mech. Sparks flew, metal screamed, and the mech erupted in molten fire. "Tell your mom I said hi," he joked into his comm, ducking under a plasma burst. His laughter, dark and defiant, echoed across the battlefield. Humans fought with a combination of chaos and calculation that alien minds could not comprehend. Every action had a purpose, every movement was a trap. One soldier would lead a direct charge, only to vanish into the shadows, reappearing behind enemy lines to sabotage supply nodes or assassinate officers. Drones created illusions, holograms of entire regiments, forcing the aliens to waste energy and resources on phantoms. And from orbit, Mara watched the Saurian fleet struggle, their formations falling apart like brittle glass under pressure. The humans had turned the battlefield into a web, every thread a potential death trap. Ships that had once been proud symbols of Saurian dominance were torn apart with terrifying efficiency, their crews incinerated before they could comprehend the scale of their miscalculation. "Captain, we're receiving distress calls from the northern colonies," reported XO Soren. "They've broken through the defensive lines. Civilians are. Focus on the fight, Soren." Mara snapped. "We don't evacuate the weak. We eradicate the threat." Her tone was clinical, but her eyes burned with the same fire that had fueled humanity for millennia, survival through cunning, strength through audacity. Even the Saurian elite, bred for centuries as warriors, were caught off guard. Admiral Krivik, commanding a battlecruiser heavy with shields and railguns, tried to adapt. "Concentrate all fire on the drop zones. Destroy them before they consolidate." A human squad appeared behind his flank, emerging from the cover of Saturn's rings, firing plasma rounds that pierced his shields like paper. Krivik's flagship shuddered under the assault, alarms blaring. "Impossible! How?" Another squad, riding repurposed cargo transports like combat sleds, slammed into his starboard flank, lobbing gravitic charges that shredded the hull. Explosions ripped through the cruiser as if reality itself had been violated. Vrelix watched in disbelief as entire divisions disappeared before the first real engagement. "They're everywhere. And nowhere," he hissed. "This cannot be predicted." On the planet, human squads communicated in dark humor even amidst carnage. "Got another one, Sergeant," yelled a soldier over the comm. "The lizard just learned why humans don't play nice." Another fired a rail cannon at a Saurian mech attempting to retreat, sending it hurtling off a cliff into a volcanic crater. Meanwhile, Mara orchestrated the larger strategy from orbit, her fingers dancing across the console. "Target the command ships next. Take their leadership out and the rest will crumble. Simultaneously, initiate the orbital mines along the fleet's expected retreat vector." Her orders were executed flawlessly. Explosions erupted across the alien formation, and panic cascaded through their ranks. Ships collided, shields failed, energy beams went wild, and Vrelix realized, far too late, that he was not dealing with a primitive species. He was facing predators who had waited, bided their time, and struck with surgical precision. "Admiral, the humans, they're rewriting the battle," Krivik reported, his voice breaking. "No tactics work. No formations survive. We are losing everything." Mara allowed herself a quiet smile. Humanity had not just survived, it had turned the tables. Every alien expectation had been subverted. Every strategy had been anticipated. The galaxy's most feared species were now running in chaos, scrambling to save what little remained of their pride. In the middle of the storm, Mara's voice cut across every channel, calm and deadly. Hold the line, strike with precision, and never forget, this is the price of underestimating humanity. And for the first time, the Saurians truly understood. They had not invaded a weak planet. They had awakened a war that had been centuries in planning, a species that thrived in chaos, that weaponized patience, cunning, and audacity. Humanity was no longer prey. Humanity was the hunter. The sky above Earth burned with plasma fire, debris from destroyed ships littering the atmosphere. The surface trembled under the weight of the assault, yet the humans advanced, relentless, merciless, and utterly terrifying in their resolve. And somewhere deep in the void, Vrelix whispered to himself, claws tightening around the console. They were never meant to fight like this. But the humans had already moved on. This was only the beginning. The storm had fallen, and humanity had become the hurricane. The crushing twist. Vrelix had thought he understood war. He had commanded fleets that annihilated planets, crushed civilizations, and left nothing but scorched husks for historians to remember. He had fought against species that clawed at survival with instinct and logic, but never had he faced something like this. The humans did not merely fight. They orchestrated chaos, choreographed destruction, and turned the rules of warfare into a weapon against him. And now, he realized, he had been baited. Admiral Krivik, Vrelix hissed, scales bristling. Why are we moving into that sector? It wasn't in the plan. Krivik's claws tapped nervously on the console. We assumed it was a fallback maneuver. A tactical repositioning. Standard protocol, sir. It seemed logical. Logical. A concept that no longer applied. Not here. Not now. For decades, humans had studied patterns. They had watched, waited, and learned the behaviors of every major galactic power. Their strategies weren't just reactive. They were predictive, almost prescient. And now, Vrelix's fleet was walking into a trap so perfectly orchestrated, it would have been poetic if it weren't so deadly. The dead system, near Saturn's remnants, appeared calm at first. Abandoned asteroids, frozen rings, derelict stations, all seemingly harmless. But beneath the surface, hidden in the gravitational folds and asteroid belts, lay humanity's masterpiece. An ambush designed to annihilate every Saurian vessel that dared enter. Mara's voice rang through the comms of every human operative, calm and precise. Prepare the gravitational traps. Initiate antimatter arrays. Let's see how they handle reality when it fights back. And then the chaos erupted. First, the gravitational distortions ripped through the Saurian formation. Ships collided with asteroids that weren't supposed to move. Hulls were crushed, shields shattered, energy cores destabilized. The fleet had been funneled into a death corridor designed by minds that had thought 10, 20, 50 steps ahead. Next came the antimatter mines. Hidden among frozen debris, they detonated in sequence, tearing through ship after ship in firestorms that painted the void in white-hot light. Vrelix's flagship shuddered as a wave of antimatter exploded alongside its port side. Every calculation his crew had made to avoid disaster failed spectacularly. And then Mara struck. From behind the remaining alien forces, her secondary fleet emerged, appearing from nowhere, firing with surgical precision. Command ships erupted in flames. Energy shields flickered and died. Saurian officers screamed into comm channels that were immediately silenced as their bodies were vaporized before human soldiers even landed on the bridge. Vrelix roared in disbelief, fury, and terror. Impossible! How do they? They planned this, Krivik whispered, his voice trembling. Every step, every maneuver, this was orchestrated. Mara observed it all from the command deck of the Vigilant. She did not gloat. She did not celebrate. Her face was calm, lethal, the embodiment of a species that had learned centuries of patience. They thought they were predators, she said softly. They were wrong. They've been hunting the wrong animal their entire lives. On the battlefield below, humans executed every maneuver flawlessly. Platoons flanked alien squads, sniping officers from hidden positions. Drones manipulated gravity fields to pull enemy war machines into trap. Railguns, plasma cannons, and gravitic bombs tore through alien formations with merciless efficiency. Corporal Hakim radioed from a ruined orbital station, voice filled with dark humor despite the chaos. "Tell your fleet I said hi, and that the Earth doesn't do take-backs." He fired a gravity charge at a cruiser attempting to escape, sending it tumbling into Saturn's rings in a spectacular explosion of fire and metal. But the humans weren't done. Mara initiated the psychological strike, a move designed not just to kill, but to terrify. "Broadcast every surviving recording," she ordered. "Every strategy we've executed, every officer we've eliminated, every tactic they failed to anticipate, let the galaxy see. Let them know what happens when you underestimate humanity." The communications arrays flared to life, sending the images, sounds, and tactical data across interstellar channels. Every nearby system, every alien vessel with eyes on the battle, now bore witness to humanity's precision, ruthlessness, and audacity. The effect was instantaneous. Panic rippled through the Saurian ranks. Fleets that had been confident, cocky, and dismissive now wavered. Ships turned to flee only to collide with each other, trapped by the gravitational distortions humans had laid like invisible nets. Vrelix's fleet, once a symbol of invincibility, was collapsing into chaos. Vrelix's mind, trained for centuries of warfare, struggled to comprehend the scale of the disaster. "They planned this," he hissed, disbelief cracking his voice like ice under pressure. Every prediction had failed. Every expectation shattered. He had underestimated the humans, and they had punished him with precision, creativity, and sheer audacity. Mara allowed herself a small smile. She did not celebrate victory yet. This was a lesson, and lessons were best delivered with finality. Humanity had not only survived but had orchestrated a massacre of tactical genius. Alien arrogance had met human cunning, and arrogance had died. On the ground, squads advanced relentlessly. Every surviving alien soldier was met with calculated firepower. Humans didn't just fight, they manipulated the battlefield itself. Terrain shifted, gravity reversed, drones struck from directions that no logic could predict. Every step an alien took was into a trap they didn't even know existed. Vrelix's flagship was reduced to a burning husk, drifting towards Saturn's rings like a corpse on display. Krivik's command cruiser was torn in half, and the remaining ships had no cohesion, no strategy, no hope. The galaxy's most feared species, the apex predator of hundreds of systems, was being annihilated. And the humans, whose cities had been burned, whose colonies had been blockaded, whose fleets had been annihilated, moved like a storm across the battlefield. Mara's final broadcast, echoing across every Saurian channel, was simple, cold, and final. "Never underestimate Earth. We are patient, we are cunning, and we never forget." Somewhere deep in the void, Vrelix realized the cruel truth. Humanity had not just fought. Humanity had planned their extinction. And nothing, not arrogance, not technology, not raw force, could undo the reckoning they had delivered. The crushing twist was not merely the trap. It was the realization that every alien who had ever thought themselves superior, every empire that had looked down on humanity, would now tremble. Humans were predators, hunters, and strategists all in one, and they had just rewritten the rules of war for the entire galaxy. And Mara? She watched the battlefield with calm satisfaction, already calculating the next move. They thought they could control the skies. They thought they could dominate us. They were wrong. And this time, the lesson will last forever. The ambush was complete. The Saurian fleet shattered. Alien morale obliterated. Humanity, underestimated for centuries, had proven that patience, cunning, and audacity were weapons more powerful than shields, lasers, or fleets. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Victory, but not without cost. The silence after the storm was deafening. The void above Saturn glowed with the remnants of shattered Saurian warships, drifting like corpses frozen in space. Fires burned along their hulls, alarms howled in ghostly echoes, and the few survivors scrambled blindly, unsure which way to turn, unsure if they had even escaped. The galaxy's most feared predators were broken, humiliated, and terrified, and they had learned something that would haunt them for the rest of their existence. On the surface of Earth, the aftermath was no less brutal. Cities had been scorched. Forests bore the scars of orbital bombardment. Oceans had been blackened by chemical fallout. Thousands of human soldiers lay dead or missing. The cost of victory was tangible, heavy, and unbearable, but it had been necessary. Captain Mara Chen walked among the survivors, boots crunching over rubble and debris. Her face was streaked with soot and ash, her exosuit scratched and scorched, but her posture was unyielding. Around her, humanity's warriors tended to the wounded, salvaged what they could, and quietly counted their losses. Every human life lost had been a reminder. Victory demanded sacrifice. "Captain," Commander Soren said, voice low, almost reverent, We've done it. The Saurian fleets, they're in retreat. Their leadership is annihilated. The galaxy, they'll fear us." Mara didn't smile. Not yet. Her gaze was fixed on the horizon, where smoke rose from the last pockets of battle. "Yes," she said finally. "They'll fear us. But fear is not enough. They need to remember. Every attack we endure, every colony lost, every life taken, it has to be a lesson." She paused, watching a young soldier carry the body of a fallen comrade from the field. Mara's expression softened for the briefest of moments, the only crack in the armor of a commander who had spent her life preparing for this exact day. "We win," she whispered, "but we pay for it with every scrap of our humanity." The broadcasts began immediately. Humanity's victory, their tactics, their cunning, their ruthless efficiency, they were shared across every alien network within reach. Footage of annihilated Saurian warships, of human squads outmaneuvering entire brigades, of orbital strikes that defied logic, spread through the stars. Other species watched, some in awe, some in terror, all realizing a truth they had refused to acknowledge for centuries. Humanity was not to be underestimated. In private, Mara allowed herself a small, dangerous smile. "They thought no one would come," she murmured. "They were wrong. They always underestimate us." Hakim, ever the darkly humorous one, approached her from the rubble-strewn street. "So, think they'll try again?" he asked, brushing ash from his armor. Mara looked at him, cold, precise, final. "Let them. We'll be waiting. And this time, they'll remember the meaning of fear." Across the galaxy, the ripple effects of the battle were immediate. Trade routes once controlled by the Saurians collapsed. Alliances shifted. Species that had once mocked humanity now quietly recalculated their own strategies, their eyes wide with the realization that the Earth warriors were not just survivors, they were predators of a type no one had ever seen before. And yet, even in victory, there were fractures within humanity itself. The cost had been immense. Families lost, colonies obliterated, the psychological toll on soldiers profound. Victory was not joyous, it was a heavy, somber truth. Mara knew that history would remember this battle as proof of human brilliance, but she also knew that every story left untold, the ones of those who had died screaming, of the survivors who would carry nightmares home, was a scar that would last generations. She walked through the remains of a battlefield once dominated by Saurian mechs and fleets. The ground was scorched black, craters dotted the landscape, and bodies, human and alien, lay intermixed in chaotic testament to the ferocity of the fighting. Mara knelt beside a young soldier, barely 17, who had survived a direct hit from a railgun. She placed her hand on his shoulder. "You fought bravely," she said. "And so did everyone here. Remember that. Humanity remembers its own. Somewhere far above, the vigilant sensors picked up the last remnants of the Saurian survivors, drifting through space in defeat and despair. Mara ordered the fleet to monitor but not fire. This was the final lesson: mercy could be strategic. Fear alone could not bind the galaxy. Memory, precision, and reputation would do that far better. In the weeks following the battle, humanity consolidated its victory. The survivors of the Saurian fleets were catalogued, studied, and contained. Alliances were proposed to species who had once ignored Earth. Humanity did not seek domination, they sought recognition, respect, and the simple understanding that underestimating Earth was the gravest mistake any civilization could make. Yet, in quiet moments, Mara reflected on the toll. The screams of the battlefield, the loss of comrades, the destruction of homes, these were not easily forgotten. Humanity had won, yes, but at a price. Power had been asserted, fear had been instilled, the galaxy had trembled, and still, the memory of those who had paid the ultimate cost lingered like smoke in the air. And through it all, Mara remained vigilant. We survived. We struck back. But humanity is more than victory, she told Soren one evening as they looked at Earth from orbit. We are cunning, adaptable, relentless. The galaxy will know that now. But they will also learn. Our strength comes not from cruelty alone, but from every sacrifice we endure to survive. Never forget that. Hakim appeared again, leaning casually against a ruined column. Captain, he said with a smirk, you ever think about taking a vacation? Somewhere quiet? Maybe a planet with no alien armadas? Mara shook her head, her expression firm, resolute. No, she said. They think this is the end, Hakim. It isn't. This is only the beginning. Humanity doesn't rest. And neither do I. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would not soon forget. Humanity had fallen from the sky, and in that fall, they had claimed a new identity. Not as prey, not as a minor species, but as predators, strategists, and survivors unlike any other. Fear, respect, and awe would follow in their wake. And somewhere in the shadows of the cosmos, across countless systems, the whisper began. Never underestimate Earth. Never underestimate humanity. They wait. They strike. And they remember. The Earth warriors had fallen, yes, but they had left the galaxy forever changed.